Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter, text 6. We're reading, what is the name of the chapter? Is The Lord in the Heart. So, Evam Swa Chite Swata Eva Siddha Atma Tvayo Arto Bhagavan Ananta Tam Nivrito Niyatato Vajeta Samsara Hetu Paramas Cha Yatra Evam Swachitte Svata Eva Sita Atma Priyo Artha Bhagavananataha Tami Rito Niyartato Bhajeta Samsara Hetu Paramascharyatraha Evam Swachitte Svata Eva Siddha Atma Priyo Rata Bhagavan Ananta Tam Nirito Niyararta Bhajeta Samsara Hetu Paramascharyatraha Evam Swachitte Svata Eva Siddha Atma Priyo Rato Bhagavan Ananta Tam Nivrito Niyartato Bhajeta Samsara Hetu Paramascharyatraha Evam Suchitte Svata Eva Siddha Evam Suchitte Svatata Eva Siddha
Atma Priyorto Bhagavananantaha.
Atma Priyorito Bhagavan Ananta.
Tam Nivrito Niyarto Bhajeta.
Tam Nirvitato Nirto Bhajeta.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Evam Suchite Swata Eva Siddha
Evam Swachitte Swata Eva Siddha.
Atma Priyorto Bhagavan Ananta
Atma Priyorato Bhagavan Ananta.
Tam Nivrito Niyatarto Bhajeta
Tam Nivrito Niyartato Bhajeta.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Evam Swachite Swata Eva Siddha
Evam Swachitte Swata Eva Siddha.
Atma Priyorto Bhagavanananta
Atma Priyorto Bhagavan Ananta.
Tam Nivrito Niyatarto Bhajeta
Tam Nivritato Niyartato Bhajeta.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Evam Suchite Swata Eva Siddha
Evam Swachitte Swata Eva Siddha.
Atma Priyorto Bhagavan Ananta
Atma Priyorato Bhagavan Ananta.
Tam Nivrito Niyatarto Bhajeta
Tam Nirvitato Niyartato Bhajeta.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Evam Suchite Swata Eva Siddha
Evam Swachitte Swata Eva Siddha.
Atma Priyorto Bhagavan Ananta
Atma Priyorato Bhagavan Ananta.
Tam Nivrito Niyatarto Bhajeta
Tam Nirvitato Niyartato Bhajeta.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Evam Svachite Svata Eva Siddha
Evam Swasite Swata Eva Siddha.
Atma Priyo Rato Bhagavanananta
Atma Priyorto Bhagavan Ananta.
Tam Nirvitro Niyatatro Bhajatea
Tam Nivritito Niyartato Bhajeta.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra.
Evam Suchite Swata Eva Siddha
Evam Sachitte Swata Eva Siddha.
Atma Priyorto Bhagavan Ananta
Atma Priyorito Bhagavan Ananta.
Tam Nivrito Niyatarto Bhajeta
Tam Nirvitato Niyartato Bhajeta.
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra
Samsara Hetu Paramaschayatra. Does everybody have a chance to chant? Okay, anyone online like to chant? Okay, we'll do the word by word synonyms. Evam, thus, swa, chite, in one's own heart. Swata, by his omnipotency. Eva, certainly. Siddha, fully represented. Atma, the super soul. Priya, very dear. Artha, substance. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ananta, the eternal unlimited. Tam, unto him. Nirvata, being detached from the world. Niyata, permanent. Artha, the supreme gain. Bhajata, one must worship. Samsara hetu, the cause of the conditioned state of existence. Uparama, cessation. Cha, certainly. Yatra, in which. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thus being fixed, one must render service unto the supersoul situated in one's own heart by his omnipotency. Because he is the almighty personality of Godhead, eternal and unlimited, he is the ultimate goal of life. And by worshiping him, one can end the cause of the conditioned state of existence. Purport. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1861, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the all-pervading, omniscient supersoul, omnipresent supersoul. Therefore, one who is a yogi can worship only him because he is the substance and not illusion. Every living creature is engaging in the service of something else. A living being's constitutional position is to render service, but in the atmosphere of Maya or illusion or the conditioned state of existence, the conditioned soul seeks the service of illusion. A conditioned soul works in the service of his temporary body, bodily relatives like the wife and children, and the necessary paraphernalia for maintaining the body and bodily relations such as the house, land, wealth, society, and country. But he does not know that all such renderings of service are totally illusory. As we have discussed many times before, this material world is itself an illusion, like a mirage in the desert. In the desert, there is an illusion of water, and the foolish animals become entrapped by such an illusion and run after water in the desert, although there is no water at all. But because there is no water in the desert, one does not conclude that there is no water at all. The intelligent person knows that there is certainly water in the seas and oceans, but such vast reservoirs of water are far, far away from the desert. One should therefore search for water in the vicinity of seas and oceans, and not in the desert. Every one of us is searching after real happiness in life, namely eternal life, eternal or unlimited knowledge, and an unending blissful life. But foolish people who have no knowledge of the substance search after the reality of life in the illusion. This material body does not endure eternally, and everything in relation with the temporary body, such as the wife, children, society, and country, also changes along with the change of body. This is called samsara, or repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. We would like to find a solution for all these problems of life, but we do not know the way. Herein it is suggested that anyone who wants to make an end to these miseries of life, namely repetition of birth, death, disease, and old age, must take to this process of worshiping the Supreme Lord and not others, as it is also ultimately suggested in the Bhagavad Gita 1865. Now, if we at all want to end the cause of our conditioned life, we must take to the worship of Lord Sri Krishna, who is present in everyone's heart by his natural affection for all living beings, who are actually the parts and parcels of the Lord. The baby in the lap of his mother is naturally attached to the mother, and the mother is attached to the child. But when the child grows up and becomes overwhelmed by circumstances, he gradually becomes detached from the mother, although the mother always expects some sort of service from the grown-up child and is equally affectionate toward her child, even though the child is forgetful. Similarly, because we are all part and parcels of the Lord is always affectionate to us, and he always tries to get us back home, back to Godhead. But we, the conditioned souls, do not care for him and run instead after illusory bodily connections. We must therefore extricate ourselves from all illusory connections of the world and seek reunion with the Lord, trying to render service unto him because he is the ultimate truth. Actually, we are hankering after him as the child seeks the mother. And to search out the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we need not go anywhere else because the Lord is within our hearts. This does not suggest, however, that we should not go to the places of worship, namely the temples, churches, and mosques. Such holy places of worship are also occupied by the Lord because the Lord is omnipresent. For the common man, these holy places are centers of learning about the science of God. When the temples are devoid of activities, the people in general become uninterested in such places, and consequently, the mass of people gradually become godless, and a godless civilization is the result. Such a hellish civilization artificially increases the conditions of life, and existence becomes intolerable for everyone. The foolish leaders of a godless civilization tried to devise various plans to bring about peace and prosperity in the godless world under a patent trademark of materialism. And because such attempts are illusory only, the people elect incompetent, blind leaders, one after another, who are incapable of offering solutions. If we want to all to end this anomaly of a godless civilization, we must follow the principles of revealed scriptures like the Srimad Bhagavatam and follow the instructions of a person like Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who has no attraction for material gain. Now, so this is a very, very important verse in purport by Srila Prabhupada. I was listening to this lecture on this verse. I think his name was Vishvashesh Swami, or he was in Tennessee. I believe the class was in 2013. And so he was taking this apart. He was talking about how you can really appreciate like Srila Prabhupada's attention span and his intelligence, and he kind of took the verse and he took this apart and he kind of brought us back up to speed again a little bit. Like in the previous chapter, Sukadeva Goswami gave Maharaj supposed to get a nice Virat root meditation to meditate on, right? To purify our heart. And first, before that, the statement is one must meditate on the super soul, right? And then we have the universal form of the Lord, how the directions are is hearing, and how the space is the space in his eyeballs and his navels, and how the progenitors, the two Asvini Kumars and Lord Brahma is also his intelligence and the organ of procreation, right? And the seas and the oceans and the military planetary systems, Burlokas, the earthly planetary systems that is metal, the Vatala Loka, the hellish planets, those soles of his feet, and the heavenly planets are situated at the top of his head, like that. So it's a real nice Virat root meditation, meditate on, as opposed to the ignorance of illusion of a speculative research and knowledge by limited senses, no matter how powerful the instruments may be, that they're looking at the very, very small and the very, very big. We still cannot really understand the universe as it actually really is, which is described in Srimad Bhagavatam and serious Vedanta and Vedic literatures, how there's the heavenly planets. The water itself is a demigod, right? It's not just an impersonal water, but it's a personality. Somebody is in control of it. And there's Indra, he's in control of the rains. It's not by so many barometric meters and pressures and evaporation, although this is all taking place, but Indra's causing it. Is bringing the water from the ocean and distilling it from the salt and bringing it to the agriculture. It becomes arranged in such a way where the water is very, very heavy, but it's weightless until it's proper time when it's again condensed as distilled water. And Prabhupada was talking about that in a class, how the spiritual soul is originally pure, Sat Chidananda, part and parcel of Krishna, but now becoming in contact with matter, just like the distilled rain, the water, it's pure, but when it touches the ground, it becomes muddy or colored. So similarly, when the spiritual soul comes in contact with matter, then it becomes conditioned by the three modes of material nature and influenced by past, present, future, and space. So, and I believe that's Balaram, gravity. It's actually gravity, right? Past, present, future, the time factor, eternal time factor, and the spatial feature, right? It's gravity, Balaram. So everybody knows, what was it? It was I don't know why they did this in the middle century or whatever. They had to have a big giant scientist drop something from a large building and say, whatever comes up goes down. Or whatever. I don't know. It took scientists to figure this out. Sir Isaac Newton, the apple fell on his head. Right? Oh, gravity. But this has been something that's been going on for ever and ever and ever. I guess now they want to try to give an explanation to it. Right. And so give it their own explanations to it. Right. So that's actually really what's taking place in a godless civilization. We're experiencing the universe in an impersonal way. We're just seeing the sun as a ball of fire, although Vivishwan, Surya is the sun god. And Krishna says that he taught the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god, Vivishwan, 40 million years ago. Like that. So Krishna doesn't change his body. He remembers teaching the Bhagavad Gita, the imperishable science of yoga, the sun god 40 million years ago. And Arjuna was there, but a different capacity. So Krishna doesn't change his body, so he remembers, right? But the living entities, we are continually changing our bodies. And so then we don't have the remembrance or recollections of our past lives, what our past destination was from another location, where we are now, and what our future destinations may be. Although there may be some general characteristics. Who is that? They said they were somewhere. Oh yeah, they were at the parade, and I was saying, man, I wish I didn't see that too, but because then I started seeing everybody like animals. You're going, man, a lot of people are starting to look like pigs. I'm going, yeah, I saw that. It looks like the lady had a lot of makeup on to try to, make it kind of look more responsible or something, more like a responsible law-abiding citizen in the state. I saw that was when I had to go to court with jury duty. I go, man, I wish I didn't have to see this, because now everybody's an animal. Here's a dog, here's a bulldog, here's a goat, a rabbit, a rat. And I'm going, okay, great. So by general characteristics, though, according to their activities and their mentalities and what their activities are, we can pretty much understand what their next life would be. And today's society, it's really simple activity: meat eating, gambling, intoxication, and illicit sex. So in fact, that's the whole idea. When unwanted progeny, samskara, becomes prominent, then the world becomes a hellish condition. And so it's a hellish condition of a godless state, a godless society. We're seeing the universe and the world in an impersonal way. Jai, Gora, Nitai, Kijai. And whether or not the fact that lost ancient histories, who built the pyramids, we don't know what was for their purpose. How do we actually really know what the purpose was? They're saying they're for tombs for pharaohs, and there's some scientific equipment in there, but we don't even know who built them. What do we even know what the purpose of them were actually really for, right? So, history's either been omitted, like there's some books in the Bible that have been omitted, where there's actually more details about Adam and Eve and Garden of Eden and some previous wives of Adam, and Jesus was actually teaching esoteric principles of the actual purpose and state of the existence of the soul. So we can also understand that from Bhagavad Gita also. That's what Prabhupada says. Who are we? Right? So the spiritual soul is Sat Chit Ananda. It's part and parcel of Krishna. So Krishna is naturally compassionate, just like Prabhupada said in the purport, to all his eternal parts and parcels, to all his spiritual souls. So now what he did, I believe his name is Vikesh Swami, right, in 2013 on this. It's on Srimad Bhagavatam class.com. So he took this verse apart. So he was saying this is what you can actually really appreciate on this. He was talking about how they did some studies on people's intelligence spans. And basically it's about a 3-second intelligence span, right? And we're talking about a, what is that, long-term attention spans. So basically they're speaking about, some studies with short-term attention spans, when mind starts to wander. And then he was using this, how we're actually developing our long-term attention spans and sharpening our intelligence spans by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, focusing on the mantra and staying with the Hare Krishna mantra, its pronunciation, its inflections. This is also talking about, this other thing about the 64-bit process, where they analyzed everything, inflection, concentration, absorption. So all that included, and apply that to yourself, and that's what our practice is. But not only that, but these are Krishna's names, and Krishna's names are purifying, and they are one with Krishna. Krishna is not different from his name, his form, his pastimes, right? And so Krishna is the all attractive, and the reservoir of pleasure, Mother Hara. So, what we're actually really chanting, Krishna is in our heart. So this is the chapter on meditation on the Lord in the heart. So Krishna is certainly within our heart, holding a flute and lotus flower, and bedecked with peacock's feather and jewels, and the hue of blue clouds. It's being worshipped by hundreds of thousands, millions of gopis or Lakshmis. So the descriptions are there. The descriptions also there of the Lord in the heart is Paramatma, or super soul, right? Is holding conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower, respectively, like this. So, and then it's stated many times in Srimad Bhagavatam, meditating on super soul, when she chant Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He advised Narada Muni advised this to what was his name? He went to the forest, just a small child, Dhruva Maharaj. Yeah, so he practiced severe austerity, just a small child, stood on one leg, gave up breathing, drinking water, and eating. Like that, and within 6 months realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, like that. And then the Lord came personally to visit Dhruva Maharaj. So then there's other places in the one to remember super soul in the heart, meditate on an 8-petal lotus flower at the seat of the heart, and bring in the moon and the sun, and super soul standing within fire, holding his respective symbols, the conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower, and chant Om Namo Narayana Devaya, like that, and meditate on the various aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such as Lord Macha, and Lord Kurma, and Lord Raha, Lord Nishinadev, Lord Vamanadev, Lord Parshuram, Lord Ramchandra, Lord Srila Vyasadeva, Lord Buddha, Lord Dantavari, like that. So, and not only that, within the material universe, within the heavenly planets, something the material scientists don't know, there's a planet called Janaloka. And Janaloka was divided into like 8 spaces, right? And these specific realms, in each of the realm, there's one of the pure devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, and there he's worshiping Lord Nrsimhadev. And then who's the king in the pastime of Lord Macha, the fish incarnation? So he's there in Janaloka, he's worshiping Lord Macha. And Hayagriva is the horse head incarnation. The Supreme Person of God has been worshipped. He saved the Vedas and delivered them back to Lord Brahma. And so, Lord Hanuman's there worshiping Lord Ramachandra. So we have like all these descriptions. We just can't perceive them with our limited senses. A multi-dimensional universe. So something beyond our sense that we can't understand. And not only that, but the super soul is Chaita Guru. He's the source of our knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. He's the source of our consciousness, the consciousness of the actual Jiva Atma, the actual living entity. right? Consciousness is source. So we have this perception, right? Because we have this awareness, we're conscious spiritual beings, we're tinier than the atom within the heart of the material body, situated next to the super soul. And so then we have these indriyas, or the position of chitta nivritti. It's the indriyas are the sensual perceptors, vision, smell, taste, sensation, sound, and it's actualized the chitta nivritti, right? The chitta within the mind, right? So chaitra is like consciousness. Chaitra, the chitra, right? The experience, the senses, and then what we're experiencing in a limited realm, we're not experiencing everything, but I saw a metaphysical lecture and they're talking about how we're kind of plugged into the database where all the other gamers, they're all there and they're all in the same programs, so they're all interacting with each other in this virtual world. So that's actually really what's taking place. We're kind of are plugged in, our senses are plugged into these sensual perceptors where are objects of our senses. All right, so for the hearing, you need to have sound. So the sound is, so there's so many different nice things that can make sounds. So to hear nice music, right, that can be arranged. Basically, what was he stating in the class was in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, how we're getting everybody back up to speed again, how the sages, they're assembling Namasaranya Sutta Goswami, he's speaking to Sanatana Goswami, he's describing what he heard from Srila Sukadeva Goswami as answering the questions to Maharaj Purskit and the history of Maharaj Purskit and the Pandava dynasty. So there's some great instructions, great personalities. It kind of picks up where Mahabharata leaves off. And so then he's stating in the beginning in Srimad Bhagavatam that as opposed to materialistic activities, one should engage in emotional service and hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his eternal pastimes. Right. So this brings us back to this verse here. He pulled this verse apart. So he's talking about our attention span or our intelligence span. So he's saying, listen to this, if you kind of break this up, saying thus being fixed, right, meditating on the Virat Rupa, right, bringing the Lord in the heart, right, one must render service unto the super soul situated in one's own heart, right? And he's situated in his own heart by his omnipotency. So he's everywhere present as the super soul. So this is the same Vishnu, right? Not that there's hundreds and millions of thousands of Vishnus in everybody's different hearts, right? It is the exact same identity, the exact same personality. So it's been it's given that how there's so many pots of water to be all set up, and each one of those pots of water will have a reflection of the sun in it, but it's the exact same sun, right? They're not different suns, so it can be analyzed or understood that way. And so because he is the almighty personality of Godhead, who is, right, he's eternal and unlimited, right, that he is the ultimate goal of life. So he's the ultimate goal of life because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is eternal and unlimited. So he was pointing this out, and these are some really, really good points, to make, rather than just read the verse, try to absorb yourself in it. I mean, so this is really intellectual, he was stating here. And then by worshiping him, one can end the cause of conditional state of existence. So this is the actual goal or the purpose or the effect of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the heart, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he himself is the one who's unlimited and omnipotent, right? That the end result is that it ends the cause of the conditioned state of existence, right? So, but what Papa was saying is the purport. That's the problem with life: birth, death, disease, and old age. So we can end this. They want to put an end to all disease, but they don't know how to do it. They just simply created more disease, right? And they're all mixed up in topsy-turvy. Their situations or their solutions are all bad solutions, are all bad ideas. I guess they're trying to clean up the pollution by taking the polluted water to other places elsewhere. He was also mentioning that he had a friend who's he's a devotee, he's a hydrologist or something like that. What is it? He studies water. And he stated that every major river in the whole world is contaminated, is polluted. Right. So, so there's so many different things that has to be done. Water has to be purified, but whatever solution they're coming up with, they're really bad solutions. Right. You don't know what to do about the pollution problem. They shouldn't have acted irresponsibly in the first place. Like that, but it's all topsy-turvy. It's mismanaged, and so they have no actual real solutions, and especially not the solutions to the problems of life, namely the repetition of birth, death, disease, and old age. So we no longer remember our past lives. We're experiencing this specific life. We're interacting with others on this specific plane of limited sensual perception. We're not seeing the demigods. We can see through the eyes of Sastra Chakshusha. And actually, as one becomes more and more purified by Krishna's grace, and if it's his desire, then the pure devotee can actually really see the demigods. But you can see the demigods, and you can see a representation of Krishna. How Papa was saying, if you're walking alongside the beach, you're seeing the ocean, you're seeing Krishna. Krishna says, I am of all great bodies of water, I am the ocean, right? He says, I am the light of the sun and the moon. Brahma Samhita states that the sun and moon are the eyes of the Lord, right? So that was bringing us up to another point here about the meditation on Virat Rupa. It even brought Brahma back to his senses, right? To his purpose in life is to create the universe. So this even purified even a great personality like Lord Brahma's, that this was recommended to meditate on the Virat Rupa and practice austerities, and thereby begin the manifestation of creation of the material universe in its specific aspects. And so, and then there's, I was explained how there's the great sages, the Astamini Kumaras, and there's Narada and the four Kumaras, and how Lord Shiva becomes manifested, and the various different heavenly planets, and how the demigods, and they're giving birth to a variety of species, horses and trees and the birds and snakes and reptiles and the progenitors of human beings. So all this is taking place. They're populating the universe with all the species of life. So it's 8,400,000 species of life. But if one does not take the advantage of hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and rendering service, who is rendering service to Krishna, who is none other than the Lord in the heart, to end the state of material existence, then one's going to have to remain in the material world to repeated birth and death. Madhavinda Puri, he was one of our kind of scientists, he was here. He always used the term forfeiting our intelligence to go into the lower speech life. You remember him always saying this? Yes, if you have a desire to fly, you can become a bird, an insect, a flying creature. But the point of the fact is that you lose your intelligence, like that. They're not exactly thinking like, well, I'm a bird now because, I had a desire, I wanted to fly. But the point of the fact of the matter is that at the end of one's life, whatever state of being one remembers, that state one will attain without fail. And we're talking about some processes about the time of death. There's kind of like an illumination, and there's a review of one's life. You know, he's saying these are like your major events. It's not so much as every detail. You know, if you're eating a bowl of cornflakes watching Netflix, you know, but these are like major events within your life. You know, like your sorrows, your hates, your loves, your successes, your failures. You know, the major events. You know, your traumas. Your injuries, your greatest happiness. Right. So if the mind is going through like all these different processes, and the point is, from whatever state of being one remembers when one quits his body, that state he attains without fail, right? So there's a lot going on with the mind, where the mind is just readings to so many different things there in that case. So many emotional things too, so many. So you want to be thinking about Krishna and Krishna service, chanting Krishna's name, being a devotee, thinking of the devotee's devotional service. Krishna is formed different, is different various pastimes he performs. Like I have by Krishna's grace, a Govardhan Shila, Shri Giriraj. So I'm always constantly thinking about how Lord Krishna is holding the. He picks up the Govardhan Hill just as a small child, just very easily picks up a mushroom, and he holds it. Your left hand's actually not really very strong, but he holds it on the pinky of his left hand. And it was like for 14 days through some Vartika rain system, which Indra uses at the end of the universe to devastate the whole entire universe. Universal devastating rain is what this rain system was that Indra sends, right? So we can understand all this, how demigods in control of the rains, the control of Chandra's and control in charge of the moon. So this is all included in Krishna consciousness. The demigods there. And then Lord Indra comes down to offer prayers to Lord Krishna and asking for his forgiveness, like that. So Krishna is so great that he saves the inhabitants of Vrindavan even from a fire. So this is Agni. He's swallowing the whole big forest fires of doing Agni, right? Demigod of fire. And what is it? Lord, was it Pumi? She's the personification of the earth. She also comes to Krishna and offers prayers to Krishna, and she's so fortunate that she gets the impressions of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna marked with the various symbols like flag, thunderbolt, rod for controlling elephants. Chakra, there's something else?
Umbrella.
All right. The what?
Fish.
Oh, fish. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Fish. So Prabhu is very, very fortunate to have these steps. In fact, they were saying that there's on Govardhan Hill, there's Krishna and Radharani's footsteps. And Radharani's footsteps had little tiny sprinkles of glittery gold that were coming from her jewelry, her ankle belt. So her footprints were covered with like gold dust, like that, in the cushions of Govardhan Hill. So that's the whole prerogative, and the whole idea is to end this the cause of the conditional state of existence. So basically, what's the cause of the conditional state of existence, right? Why are we coming in the material world in the first place? So basically what's taking place in the world today is people are envious. They're envious of each other. They're envious of themselves. They're envious of hatred towards the Lord within their own hearts. They torture their own bodies practically. You have people in the mode of ignorance, they want to hurt themselves and want to hurt the others. Some characteristics of this state of Kali Yuga. It's like an extreme level of stupidity. Right. Now, in fact, Papa was talking about how this was first. Lord Buddha had decried the Vedas as his compassion to end the animal killing, the animal slaughter. So he had developed this system that there's nothing. There's, it's just nirvana or nirvana, cessation of material activities, right? There's just nothing. So then Sripad Sankacharya was saying, okay, there's a spiritual soul and there's Brahman, as opposed to the material illusion that actually doesn't exist. So what actually really doesn't exist is our mentality, is that there's this specific arrangement in the material world, and it's perceived differently by its perceivers according to our specific perspectives within the universe. We're in the heavenly planetary systems, middle planetary systems, the subterranean planetary systems, or hellish systems. Anywhere within the 14 planetary systems, we're experiencing the universe in a completely specific and uniquely different way. And not only that, so in the human form life, what they're saying are this level of stupidity, they're talking about like the different types of bardos or specific types of living conditions, like in Buddhism. Like this is the bardo of the living. Earthly fleshly realm is highly perishable, and we're going to another realm after the time of death, either to the pious planets or the pious dwell, or if we're going to hellish planets and going back down into the lower species, according to our specific mentalities and our sinful activities. It's all way. Yamaraj or Dharmaraj, he's there in accordance with super soul, is awarding the karma to the sinful materialistic living entities, the ordinary material entities. But the Buddhists have a special prerogative in that. Although Lord Buddha says there's nothing, and Sripad Sankacharya says, okay, the material world is illusory, Brahman is what is eternal. And so then to go a little further, Prabhupada says that those who are knowers of the truth have concluded that the Supreme is realized in three phases of understanding: Paramatma, Bhagavan, and Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahmaniti, Paramaniti, Bhagavaniti, Shibhati. Like that. So the devotees have the special prerogatives that we're approaching Bhagavan, the possessor of all opulences. So that's what Prabhupada was saying, sir, is that naturally all the sons and daughters of the Supreme Lord are also endowed with the same qualities of the Lord. And what is the Lord? He's Bhagavan, he's possessor of all opulences, all riches, all beauty, all knowledge, all strength, all fame, and all renunciation. So we have these qualities, but in many qualities, and we're eternal, full of knowledge, and always blissful, right? Like that. So anyway, so what we're really experiencing in today's world is a level of some systems of stupidity, rapture, hell, anger, animosity. So these are like lower levels of mode of ignorance, like that. So we're naturally inclined towards sattvic activities. In Krishna consciousness, this is transcendental sattva. Sattva. It's a transcendental state of material goodness, over and above material goodness. That comes naturally, is that we offer our food, our prasadam. It's all foodstuffs that Krishna asked for that are sattvic, mode of goodness, and our activities. So we're transcending, the devotees themselves are munis. They're gratefully thoughtful and grateful, and not so much in these lower levels of animosity. The world itself certainly is in a state of rapture. We can understand why, according to sinful activities, and they're not offering their oblations and sacrifices to the demigods to satisfy the demigods who are giving us these, giving us the so-called utilities, our water, our light, so everything is, we're dependent on them, and just stating that they don't even exist. Like that, in a godless civilization, everything has a scientific explanation to it in an impersonal way, creating a godless civilization. So the earth is responding by withdrawing its resources, and the wars occur, so more and more people will die. There'll be more and more violence, like that, more disease. So we can put an end to also these material considerations as well by becoming Krishna conscious, like that. So we could purify the whole atmosphere like that. So is there any other questions or comments? I know we're kind of running out of time.
Who is the source of consciousness?
Oh, yeah, it's Paramatma. Paramatma is it's called Chaitra Guru. You know the name of Lord Chaitanya? Chaitanya means the living force. The Chaita, that's the same Chaita as in Chaitanya, it means the living force. That's the actual source of our actual consciousness. You know, actual Krishna is the source of our actual identity or being as atomic Jiva Atma, part and parcel of Krishna, in the same qualities, the same substances, eternity, knowledge, and bliss, or Sat Chit Ananda. Right, that's where it becomes really charming. This is what we're made of: eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Right. So, and it's the same exact same substance what Krishna is. And the whole Chintamani Dham, Chintamani, and the top of Richa trees and the Surabhis. Right, so it's Chaitra Guru is giving us our knowledge, is giving us our consciousness. Consciousness is a symptom of the soul. So you know, when we see each other and we see other persons, you know, we're saying that there's, because the spiritual soul is present, we can see, you know, see on the spiritual platform that the body is moving, that the body is illuminated, that there's personality, there's a person's personality, you know, all that is all vanishes when the person leaves the body like that. So we can understand that where the source of this is actually really coming from, is coming from Paramatma. You know, where these highly spiritual nuclear beings, you know, Paramatma is within not only the heart of all the living entities, but within the nucleus of all the atoms as well, which is the complete total building blocks of all of matter. You know, this variety of manifestations of specific atoms that combine to make specific molecules that are combined, that we're experiencing on this specific platform as solids, liquids, and gases.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Any more questions, comments? Yeah, Srimad Bhagavatam class Ki Jai.